Hi guys, today I wanted to make a video on spells I currently believe are problematic in PvP. Basically spells that are either plainly too strong or do too much for their pip value. So let's get right into it, guys. I made a little list on a Word document, so I'm going to try to follow that list. It should be more or less per school. Let's start with Myth because I think that's one of the most glaring ones in the entire game. Keep in mind this is coming from a player that mostly queues a legendary. First of all, guys, surprising no one, we got Stone Colossus. Basically, the value of this spell is kind of ridiculous. The spell, I think it just doesn't work because I don't know how it makes sense to punish a player for protecting themselves from a hit while getting hit. You know what I mean? So here we have clearing basically 1 to 3 debuffs off self. So I guess that clears either infections or weaknesses. But you can potentially weakness spam someone. They'll clear all of them. I think it does 175 damage per debuff cleared, right? And gives a dot that's like it's kind of like burning rampage. I don't know what it's called. I don't know if it's a bomb, whatever. I don't know what a delayed dot is called. But basically, in 5 rounds, it's gonna do the dot damage of 175 times 3 multiplied by the player's myth damage. I believe that's how that works. Not only that, after it clears 3 debuffs, it hits for 585, and that's the lowest tier, so up to 615. Myth is pretty good damage, right? At max, for example, really good stats I hear. So personally, I believe this is problematic. And anything I mention here, like, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's my opinion to an extent, and please don't just say, "Oh man, like you're just bitching, bro. Like you're just bitching about everything." So now I included Minotaur with a question mark, and my reasoning behind this is basically Myth is too versatile right now, in my opinion, at least at lower levels, because if the opponent shielded up heavy, then you Minotaur, right? Which clip, for example, like it says here, clear up to 3 shields for 35% traps, which are pretty strong traps, right? And it kind of does like the normal minnow thing. So here you could potentially clear like 5 shields off the opponent, right? And why I think this is problematic is because the combo of minnow into Stone Colossus, for example, is problematic, and otherwise, simply you can just, if they're shielded, you minnow. If they're if you're weaknessed, then you just Stone Colossus. And personally, I think that's problematic. You could throw in Medusa possibly here. I don't know if I have any, but you could throw in Medusa that I like. Medusa is just, it's good. I don't know if the damage is really OP, but I just find Myth is so scary offensively right now because you really don't know, and there's a lot to protect yourself against. We accidentally went in this little Myth tower, ironically. Okay, so yeah, those are basically my first two. Then obviously we got the currently chromatic betrayal and possibly delusion as well. Where I'm not even sure right now if delusion also gives a 40 trap for your school, but clearing 3 shields and replacing them for traps is kind of ridiculous. Think about it like a spell like Shatter, right? Which now what is it? Does it cost 2 pips for myth and deals and removes up to 3 shields? But this one, for 1 more pip, and all schools can use it, kind of fucked up. Gives 40% traps. I think the value for the pip cost is too strong. I think it kind of makes sense maybe if it were to give 10% traps or 15% traps, but 40, nah. Delusion, kind of similar. I find, well, we'll talk about other Shambos later, but I find Delusion strange because there's so many. Like, basically, I find the Shambo and Spellman meta right now is kind of overpowering, where it's like kind of like basically everything that's happening that's not like a fat TC hit is some sort of gambit, some sort of exchange, right? Because, for example, you'll get like, trifold spam or you know, you'll get vamped or whatever, and then you just delusion. Like, it just seems like the whole game is just a mess of exchanging these spells and switching school pips and being down bad on pips because of it. So those are my first 4 spells. All right, next I wanted to move on to fire. So what I'm going to try to do. All right, guys, moving on, we're going to have death. So this character is actually one of my 2 deaths I have on my main account, and all my spell elements are on the other character. However, he's not high enough level to have learned Vampire, I believe. So I'm just going to go on my max and show you guys what I'm talking about. First of all, we have Vampire. So I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's been popular for a while. Trifold Fever, Threefold Fever, whatever it's called. Let me check that real fast. With threefold, where is it? Yeah, Threefold Fever, right? You set up triple infections. And then you can combo that with either, for example, Monster Mash or Vampire, which gambits. So basically you exchange 2 debuffs on the opponent, whether that be some sort of weakness or some sort of infection, for up to 2 minus 60% weaknesses, which is super strong. I believe if you use this against the balance, what happens is they get a minus 45% universal weakness, which is like a little more reasonable, but I still don't understand why the hell they thought minus 60 was a good idea. I think that's I think that's toxic. I think it forces people to like delusion. Basically, the game makes the game worse because it's more not predictable, but everything is like more standard. Like everyone uses the same things all the time, and if you don't, you get wrecked essentially. So yeah, I think it's pretty problematic. I think it's too strong. I don't know what that they should nerf it to. Maybe a 35, maybe a 30, maybe even a 25. One spell I just realized I don't have on my list for later, so I'll jot that down right now. Alright. Okay. So, that's Vampire covered. Then I also included Banshee with a question mark just because I've seen it cast a lot in PvP. So, what this does, I think it's just like a high utility spell. Clear 2 blades off the opponent, or 2 positive charms off the opponent for minus 25% weakness, and I guess probably a 25% infection, something like that. So basically you clear blades and replace them by a weakness plus an infection, so some sort of like crazy utility lore master kind of tech. I'm not sure whether or not this is problematic, but I think the fact that you can technically, I believe, you could probably Banshee into the Vampire, right? So then you kind of just start you really start effing your opponents up, and I put on a bunch of minus 60s. I think that combo is kind of weird, pretty toxic in my opinion. Alright, so that's death covered, guys. Alright guys, now we're on to life school spells, which I could have covered earlier, but the only one I currently have written on my list personally is Goat Monk. I'm not sure if it's necessarily broken. It's just that unless you're facing someone who's using the Gearhead Destroyer and you don't have the protected version like I do, like I don't, I guess. I don't know. I find like the value of this is probably pretty high, right? You do damage, although I guess it's not like great damage really, and then you heal yourself, and it is a bit. It's kind of nerfed, you could say, because it's not an insta heal. It's over 4 rounds. But it's definitely been a problematic pseudo JD combo where you can clear traps off yourself with Centaur, or you can, what is it, Tranquility or something, give yourself a heal. You can Goat Monk, and you can combo Luminous Weaver into Goat Monk with both the damage blade and the healing blade buffing Goat Monk. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily super overpowered, but I feel like it's kind of questionable, and they made it like an overly useful combo or overly centralizing combo. I think that's it for life. Alright guys, now we have balance. So balance, I'm not entirely sure either, but I feel like, you know what, Lore Master's back at high tier, minus 25, does okay damage for the pip cost. Very, very widely used by those that have it. Because it's that's how other games work, man. Usually when something's overused, it gets like banned or nerfed, right? Because it's over centralization of the metagame. and they somehow, I don't know why the heck they would have done this, but they made Lore Master very, very viable again after all the controversy it's caused in the past. I don't know whose decision that was. I think it's pretty ridiculous. Then obviously, yeah, we're not going to talk about Scales of Destiny because I don't queue at max right now. I know it's bad. I don't know if they double nerfed it. I thought it was 205 per school now, but I think this is obviously still used at high level. Brace, Mana Burn, Scales, Mock, Gaze. You know, just starter kit for a balance. Another one, Gearhead Destroyer, really good. I guess it's situational, but I feel like it's so good that it should almost like not even deal damage or something. But like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's problematic. It's just really, really good. Like in the right circumstances. Same with Locust Swarm. Really, really good as a trap counter in the right circumstances. And then Hydra, I feel like you can sort of argue that it's a bit messed up, a bit strong, a bit too scary that the Firehead hits last. Then if you have a Fire School wand hit, like it's a really deadly combo. Clear your own weakness, clear the fire shield, and then spank your opponent. Even if they have like a random death shield on, I believe it still gives the boost. So this may or may not be like a little overpowered. Maybe they should just make the Firehead hit first and still have the extra damage, because I thought that's what it originally did until I cast it. And I saw that the order was reversed. But off the top of my head, guys, I think that's the only thing for non-max balance, right?